you. So it's the third time I'm on stage today, and I feel really lucky to be on stage because the last time before today, when I was on this stage, I was 7 and I was dancing to the tunes of Britney Spears' "Hit Me Baby One More Time." Yeah, I was, I was part of the Palatul Copilor, the children ensemble, and I was thinking about performing for you guys today, but I don't like Britney Spears anymore, unfortunately. So I decided to instead talk about something that has been a lot more challenging than dance for me, and that's product market fit. How many people in the audience, I can't really see you, but can we do a show of hands of who knows what product market fit is? Oh my God, almost no one. Okay, well, I think the reason is, in the words of Gentry, who was one of the speakers this morning, someone asked him, how do you know when you achieve product market fit? And he said, you know it when you get there. And that's about it. That's the extent of what people who have achieved product market fit tell you when you ask them how you can get there. So instead of focusing on what product market fit means, I decided to maybe talk to you a bit about how you get there. It's a really humbling road that's filled with a lot of failure and iteration that I've had the chance to go on myself. And I wanted to share a bit of that with you. So let me start by saying that building a startup is an incredibly emotional journey, and entrepreneurs are usually like really demanding Eastern European mothers who project a lot and expect even more from their product. And so what usually happens with 99% of the startups is this. They have an over-architected idea, they have a ton of assumptions that they haven't validated, they don't have a real plan for how they're going to build based on those assumptions or how they're going to test those assumptions. And finally, that usually results in no users and no customers. And this happens 99% of the time. And then you're left in this really magical moment where you ask yourself, should I give up? And the reason why I'm so familiar with how 99% of the startups work is because I was that entrepreneur, and I think sometimes I still am. The really naive, unfocused entrepreneur who didn't really feel like I had to think about how I was building the product, but rather than passion would make up for everything. And as it turns out, passion really helps in moments like these because in one of these moments, I actually read a quote about giving up. I think I was Googling, should I give up, when I read this quote, and I found this quote, which I think is one of my favorites. Companies don't fail, people give up. And you've heard a lot about failure and giving up today, but the reason why I like this quote is because it really makes you feel like it's up to you. You know, companies or projects or products, they don't just vanish. It's your decision ultimately if you're going to keep going or not. So if you've gotten to this point and you're past this point, then you definitely have the passion and the courage, and you've hit your head against the wall, and your head has only gotten stronger. And so from here, how do you really go in a more strategic way? How do you gain that focus to actually build a product? In the words of Mark Andreessen, he was saying that product market fit is really the only thing that matters. And the way he defined it was as being in a good market with a product that can satisfy that market, which I found to be pretty vague. And when I was looking up definitions of product market fit, because I knew that this was the only thing that really mattered, I didn't really find anything that I felt was good enough. And so at Knotch, in one of our moments of iteration or pivot, we sort of built our own framework to realize if one of the 5 ideas that we had in front of us we wanted to pursue. And this framework is really simple, and it has a few components. It starts with demand. And this is a really serious question that you have to be very sort of cynical about. The question is there demand for what your idea is? And what sort of a demand is it? Is it the sort of demand where people need this product? Or is it the sort of demand where it would be nice to have this product? How big is the market size? When you project that demand, 5 to 10 years from now, is this a market that's big enough to want to play in? Is it fun, right? Like, could you conquer big things? Who are the competitors? And is the competition scattered? Is it small startups? Or is it, oops, can you still hear me? Yeah? Okay. Or is it really large, consolidated companies? And given your personality, what sort of competitors would you like to take on? I'm definitely more for like the really large companies. I get a kick out of defeating the likes of Facebook and Google. Acquirers. Who are the acquirers? This is connected with the competition, right? And do these acquirers build products in-house, or do they tend to buy startups? Investors, do VCs invest in this market? Some markets are not very attractive to VCs, and do you care about getting VC money? And then the last three really deal with your team. And this is why I call it a product team market fit. Because you could have the best product and the biggest market, but if you don't have the right people for it, it doesn't really matter. So when it comes to the people, the questions that we've asked ourselves at Knotch are, is it feasible for us to build this? In other words, do we, as a team, have a comparative advantage to build this particular product in this particular market? How long will it take us to build this product? Is it a product that you can build in 3 months, or is it a product that you can only build in 3 years? And do we have that time? Do we even want to invest that much time, right? And finally, this is the most important part for me, do we have the passion for it? And I really care about this one because I have this personal philosophy where the first step I take out of bed every morning has to be a step in the right direction. And if I feel like it isn't, then I just stop going that way. And I want my team to feel the same way too. So that's why I call it product team market fit. I've decided to quote myself in my own presentation because that's a very Anda thing to do. And kind of going from just the passion side, the really important concept on just strictly product is to understand the definition of a minimum viable product. And it's important because a lot of people, I think especially in Romania from what I've seen, seem to think that you need to really polish a product to build the best product, to build the perfect product before you can launch it. And I think you just need to build the minimum viable product. So what does MVP mean? I define it as the smallest thing you can build that delivers customer value. And the way you get to what exactly you're going to build is a really simple process. You take an idea. Let's say that you want to build an app to schedule meetings on your phone. And you say, okay, what are the first assumptions that I'm making? One, I'm making the assumption that people are using mobile phones. That's pretty easy to check off, right? Second, I'm making the assumption that people use calendars on their phone. That's also pretty easy to check off. Three, I'm making the assumption that people, when they meet, want to organize meetings on their calendars, on their mobile phones in real time. So how could you account for that assumption? As opposed to starting to build this over-architected product, how do you initially account for that? And again, as you heard from Gentry at Mailbox, they made a video to figure out if people were actually interested in their offering. You could build a landing page, you could build a survey. There's a lot of different ways to do it without investing resources into it. And so I wanted to talk to you a bit in a very vulnerable way about what I did wrong. Because a lot of getting to product market fit is admitting your own failures, being vulnerable, and kind of saying, I've learned from them. So at Knotch, we have this really big mission to figure out how people feel in real time about everything. And it's really exciting, and everyone in my team feels like they're making a step in the right direction when they wake up in the morning, and everyone's aligned. But it basically means we want to conquer everything all at once. And that's what we tried to do initially. So our first product, and by the way, I've never shown this publicly before, so please don't laugh, because it'll be very embarrassing for me. Our first product looked like this. And I don't really know what this is. There's a million buttons, and there's no call to action. You're kind of wondering what exactly were we trying to do here. And we were just making a ton of assumptions. We were making the assumption that people want to express how they feel around content. So we built this to be kind of like a Pinterest-like button. Two, we made the assumption that people wanted to express how they feel in words, which as we later found out was wrong. Three, we made the assumption that we could just put pretty colors that didn't mean anything and just allow people to notch in saturations of colors. And finally, we made the assumption that we didn't need to reward people for expressing their opinion. We just told them success. And so this product was so bad that even the team was not using it. And I don't know why we spent 4 months building it. I think we were trying to prove something to ourselves, that somehow we were real. And looking back at that, I appreciate it as a learning experience, but using this really simple process that I've just explained to you, we would have saved a lot of time and a lot of resources. So I'm going to talk real quick about Knotch now. The way we've learned to think about getting people to express how they feel is very systematic. After failing, we realized that we needed to test every single thing that we assumed and started figuring out if people wanted to express themselves in 5 stars, emoticons, numbers, percentages, words, surveys, and realized that none of them were really working. So we went back to this idea of color and color coding emotion, but doing it in a way that was incredibly intuitive. in a way that we would resonate with from when we were kids, which is the thermometer. We've all taken our temperature at least once in our life, right? And we wanted this to be incredibly international from the get-go. So we pushed out the product to the left. No words were required. It's one click away, and it could be done in the attention span of today, which is, by the way, lower than the attention span of a goldfish, which is about 5 seconds, right? Everything needed to be one click away. And as we found out, we actually needed to place our units, our technology around content, because content provided the context for feeling something. And as opposed to going after everything all at once, so let's figure out how people feel about everything in real time, we decided to focus on delivering for brand marketers, helping them understand if the content that they're creating is actually paying off by using our technology. The plan is still to get to the big mission that we have, but now, because we've learned our lessons and have learned how to build a minimum viable product, we have a much better shot to get there, because we're a lot more strategic at it. So just to recap, 4 main things that I'd like for you to keep when you leave the auditorium. 1, companies don't fail, people give up. 2, product team market fit. Make sure that your team is aligned with your product and your market. 3, solve a need that is worth solving. Be passionate about it and make sure that the world needs it. And finally, learn how to think small. Everyone talks about thinking big. I don't think entrepreneurs have a problem with thinking big. I think entrepreneurs have a problem with thinking small and thinking focused. That's what I've seen, at least, and that's exactly who I was. So thank you. I'll leave you with this one last quote at the end, which is by a Formula One driver, and it's another thing I found in one of my moments of complete insanity, where I was wondering, is it really supposed to feel this shitty, where nothing is really under my control? And as it turns out, apparently, if it's in your control, you're doing something wrong. So thank you.
Wow, that was impressively in time. So we still have a lot of time for Q&As.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I designed it that way.
You designed it that way. That's good. So you want that the people put you on the spot.
Exactly. I do. I actually would enjoy it.
Okay. So then there will be prizes for the most uncomfortable questions.
Yeah, I would love uncomfortable questions.
Okay. So who has a question to Anda in the stage? Over there.
So it actually went, the microphone got here, sorry.
Oh.
Just I have a longer arm and that's why.
I mean, if you don't have a question, you can sit down.
The question would be, you have this long-term vision and you build a product to tackle that long-term vision, but on the way there, based on constraints and teams and all the other things, you decide that you need to have like an intermediary milestone. Mm-hmm. Let's get here and then we'll see how it goes. How does the whole team contribute to figuring out what's that milestone?
How does the whole team contribute to that?
Yes. Is it it's something that only in your case, the CEO decides on that?
Or that's a great question.
Do you get like feedback from clients or product managers, et cetera, et cetera?
So the reason why we developed this framework with demand and market size and all that stuff is because about 9 months ago, we were in this really funny point where we had the technology and we knew it was working in the context of content, but then we were wondering, okay, what do we do with it? Do we try to help marketers measure the impact of their content? Do we try to help publishers understand editorial insights? There were 6 different ideas that we had. And we developed this framework together with our team because it's really hard to pivot a team. When the team initially joined, we were building a completely different product, even though the mission was the same. So I'm a big believer in bringing in the team on almost every large decision that we make. When it comes to more day-to-day decisions, I'm more of a dictator, but when it comes to the big stuff, if you hire the right people, they're actually going to be very, very value-add to these sort of conversations.
Okay. Thank you. Then we have the next one. I think, Bogdan, you don't win the prize with the most uncomfortable question with that.
Yeah, that was very comfortable. Thank you.
You said that at the beginning of your speech that you had to choose between 5 ideas or 5 products.
Between what?
Between 5 ideas or 5 products. Was that during the ideation stage. So it's something like with the whole team, you choose 5 different ideas, and the one that get traction, you follow that idea?
So I came up with a list of all the potential applications for our technology, and then together with the team, we figured out the framework. And everyone on the team was assigned a particular side of either researching the demand or the market size or the competition, so that everyone was bought into it. And then we had a scoring board, and we literally made the decision together.
So in this case, the idea came from technology. And
yeah, so
you search for a market for that technology.
Exactly. Yeah, okay. It was a bit weird because we started off not necessarily wanting to solve a problem, but wanting to bring about a change in the way people interacted with content. We wanted to create a universe where content was bilateral, where you could speak to the content, not just have the content speak to you. But then when we built the technology, we realized we hadn't asked ourselves, who cares about this data? Like, does anyone actually want to pay money for this? And it's this point where you go from being a startup to being an actual business. So we went through that transition very much together as a team. And it was still hard, but we did it.
I ask because most of the advices that we get for startup is to start from the market. But sometimes even me, I figure out that it's okay to start from technology when it's.
I don't know if I would do that ever again.
The things.
It's really hard to take that approach. It was my first company, so I think in many ways, a lot of the stuff that happened, we had to just deal with. If I were to go out and start a completely new company now, I think I would do it in a much more strategic way and think about the market need and so on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Back there. Oh, we have like three, four more, which I can see. So let's see.
How can you see?
I have like Superman vision.
You have the glasses, I guess. Those are good.
Hey,
yes.
Anda.
And it makes me see the audience naked as well.
Oh, nice. Can I have?
Hey, Anda. And my
Hey.
question is that you said that you have started 3 NGOs, right? And how did you motivate your people to work and to continue work after you left?
Not with money, I will tell you that.
Yeah. If you can make people work for free, you can make them work for money much easier.
Actually, no, it's more difficult because it's very binary, right? Like you can say, oh, I have no money, so if you're going to join me, I told them we're going to meet the Russian president and the American president, and I had no idea if I could actually make that happen, but it happened. So, and then it was really easy to do the other stuff, to hire the next round of people. When it comes to hiring people for money, there's actually something to negotiate on. So it's harder, especially in Silicon Valley. Okay. So that I just promised big things, and I made them passionate about it.
I guess this is Bogdan again, waving there wildly, probably.
No, it's not Bogdan.
It's not Bogdan, but anyway, let's take the person here first. Just like right to here. So we'll take both of them, don't worry.
Okay, so my question will be a bit uncomfortable, because you said in the beginning that you were a naive entrepreneur. So I'm really interested, did you feel like it helped you, like you continued even though the odds were against you, or did you felt like the investors were seeing that naive side and they weren't investing?
Yeah, it's a great question. Maybe we should ask my investor. I think investors who used to be entrepreneurs themselves really appreciate that naive side. I think, in fact, they invested in me because I had it. Because I just don't give up, Like I don't think that that many things are impossible in life. So when investors see that in you, it doesn't really matter what the idea is, and it doesn't really matter if you have a team yet or not, because you just won't give up. And in the long run, you're going to beat the other folks who are trying. So I think it was actually something good for me.
Okay, then we take...
Anda, you mentioned when you launched Knotch version 1.0 that one of the toughest questions you've had was with your CTO, with Stephanie. How do you split equity amongst founders?
Sorry, so one of the toughest things was what?
You said one of the toughest discussions you've had was with Stephanie.
When did I say that?
It was a while ago when you launched the first version of Knotch in Cluj.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. So
how do you split equity? Because there is this
yeah, it's a great question. I have a lot of opinions on that. I don't know if I should discuss them on stage. I think, how should I put this? I think a lot of founders only think about the practical division, right? Like there's a CTO and a CEO, and therefore both should be equal. Sometimes it's kind of, it goes the other way, where the CEO wants to take 80% and give the rest to the co-founders. I think a healthy balance is somewhere in between. I would say the person who is the most emotionally invested should probably have a little bit more so that they can make the ultimate decision without really fearing an equity split. People usually underestimate the emotional investment that is needed to actually run a company. And when there's two founders, it's really rare that both of them are as emotionally invested as the other. So I think I would advise to sort of think about the emotional side as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and
I'm not coming back, I promise.